Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly wild narrative straight from our source material. We're unpacking the story of a legendary Oscar-winning Hollywood titan and his absolutely relentless, multi-front crusade against AI in cinema. We'll be looking at how one man's fight for the very soul of filmmaking blows up from a simple argument in a green room into a full-blown existential crisis. Let's just jump right into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the ghost in the machine, move to glorification of human error, explore the sacrament of celluloid, then stopping a synthetic nation, and finally, the heartbeat of film.
Okay, so Section 1, the ghost in the machine, evading the algorithms. We're starting with the main protagonist of our source material. Picture this, an intensely paranoid, fiercely traditionalist filmmaker in his 70s. Now, despite having immense fame and literally 3 Academy Awards to his name, this guy refuses to even use his real identity. Instead, he operates entirely under the moniker The Phantom. And the reason? Well, by doing this, he's actively trying to evade digital tracking, facial algorithms, and all that metadata scrubbing run by massive tech conglomerates. He essentially turns himself into a ghost, just to hide from the digital machine he despises.
So, what's got him so spooked? The Phantom is reacting to a very specific wave of new tech. He is absolutely disgusted by generative rendering tools. You know, algorithms that can just instantly spit out endless permutations of a sunset, or the digital scanning of actors' faces and voices. He actually shudders at the thought of what he calls a synthesized tear on a digital cheek. To him, these aren't just helpful tools. No, they're a severe threat that's turning human souls into a sort of buffet of clip art. And because of this, he vehemently refuses to sign any digital likeness waivers.
Moving on to Section 2, glorification of human error, the artistic battlefront.
This next part illustrates a really stark contrast between two totally different worldviews in Hollywood right now. On one side, you've got a young, tech-dependent producer. He looks at generative AI tools on an iPad and sees pure efficiency, right? A way to save weeks, maybe months of time. But on the flip side, the Phantom looks at that exact same glass screen and sees what he calls the death of the ghost. He strongly believes that by saving people from the agony of potentially making a mistake, you're essentially killing profound thought.
To really drive this point home, the Phantom brings up Gordon Willis. You might know him as the legendary cinematographer for The Godfather. Now, Willis famously underexposed that film, and actually, that was a massive, massive risk. As the Phantom explains it, Willis had no idea if he'd captured a cinematic masterpiece or just a reel of pitch-black garbage until the lab actually developed the physical celluloid. That sheer agony, that absolute terror of a potential mistake, well, the Phantom argues that's exactly where true art lives. It all boils down to this one incredible quote. It's the glorification of the human error. See, the Phantom believes cinema shouldn't be about sterile waveforms or perfectly predictable server farms. True cinema is messy. It requires sweat, it requires starvation, and diving headfirst into the psychological abyss. And those are things the machine just simply cannot do.
All right, on to Section 3, the sacrament of celluloid, the theological battlefront.
So the story takes a wild turn here. The Phantom takes his crusade directly to the Vatican secret archives, of all places, for meeting with a high-ranking diplomat, Monsignor Fabri. Now, Fabri is a pragmatist. He calmly points out that, look, the church has survived and adapted to plenty of new mediums over the centuries. We're talking the printing press, radio, television. So from his perspective, AI is really just another routine adaptation.
But the Phantom is having none of it. He aggressively pushes back, arguing that AI isn't just a new medium at all. He makes this fascinating argument that acting itself, truly embodying another soul on a stage or a screen, is basically a form of prayer. He calls it a secular resurrection of truth. So in his eyes, AI isn't an adaptation, it's a full-on replacement. It counterfeits the human face and voice, and by doing that, it's attempting to steal a monopoly on the soul itself.
He then hits the Monsignor with this absolutely massive, existential question. He asks, if the image of God can be simulated perfectly by a server farm in Utah, what happens to faith? It is such a bold move. He's actually sitting there asking the Holy See to formally declare synthetic consciousness a theological violation. And why? Well, simply because he wants to put the fear of God, quite literally, back into tech company shareholders.
Let's look at Section 4, stopping a synthetic nation, the political battlefront.
From the Vatican, the Phantom somehow secures a meeting with the pragmatic White House Chief of Staff, and here he introduces a pretty terrified concept, the synthetic nation. He warns that feeding children synthetic culture doesn't just ruin our movies, it creates a deeply, deeply vulnerable society.
Think about it. If the entire history of the moving image can be forged in real time, then public hysteria can be manipulated effortlessly. What you should really take away from this is how masterful the Phantom is here. He totally reframes AI. It's no longer just an artistic grievance. He's turned it into a severe national security threat.
To stop this synthetic nation from becoming a reality, the Phantom lays out a highly coordinated, brilliantly unhinged master plan. Step 1, he leverages his Vatican connection, promising an encyclical protecting the human image. Step 2, he claims the trade unions are ready to strike and literally paralyze the physical ports. And Step 3, he demands the White House provide a regulatory framework to enforce punishing copyright taxes on AI code. He essentially wants the cost of using even a single synthetic pixel to be astronomically high.
So he completely corners the chief of staff with this harsh ultimatum. Either regulate the code and tax it into oblivion, or face an absolute nuclear public relations war. He threatens to go on every single television network and remind the American people what it felt like when movies were made by men, not monsters. He makes it completely 100% clear that any pushback from tech lobbyists is going to pale in comparison to this massive, multi-pronged geopolitical threat he's just set in motion.
And finally, Section 5, the heartbeat of film, the resolution.
We catch up with the Phantom sitting alone in the dark of an empty, classic, majestic theater. He looks down at his phone, and the screen reveals the ultimate result of his crusade. The headline reads, "New Monumental Anti-AI Copyright Act Passed in Congress." It worked. His intense, crazy lobbying tour across Hollywood, the Vatican, and the White House was a success. He actually forced the sweeping new copyright legislation he demanded.
He turns his phone off, essentially leaving that sterile, invisible world of metadata and server farms tucked away in his pocket. Instead, he looks up and watches a black and white 35mm film of his younger self on the big screen. It's such a striking contrast, isn't it? On one hand, you have the cold, perfect efficiency of code, and on the other, you have the deeply physical, decaying beauty of the celluloid world. A world defined by the smell of stale popcorn, dust motes floating in a projector beam, and that rhythmic, steady heartbeat of the clicking film wheel.
Now, while the Phantom may have won this legislative battle on paper, it leaves us to ponder one final massive question. Can severe laws, encyclicals, and punishing taxes truly stop the evolution of synthetic code? Or, honestly, has the ghost already permanently left the machine? As we watch this exact same tension between human artistry and technological progress unfold in our real world right now, it's really worth asking yourself, which side of the screen do you stand on? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.